Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Press Play Lifestyle Inspired Podcast, where we do interviews with interesting and inspiring people like our new friend Atlas here on topics that help inspire our listeners, that's you, to find the resources, tools, and support they need to be their best inspired selves. So how are you doing today, Atlas?
Doing all right, Jackie. I'm hanging in there. How about
Awesome.
you?
I'm doing amazing. I'm home with my four very interesting kids and my loving husband, and they haven't made me crazy yet. So I'm feeling pretty blessed that no one has been injured in the making of this movie. So
There
it's
you go.
great.
Yeah, full house.
We do. I was recently I remember I used to always complain a little bit about how much to clean. And now I'm like, oh, thank heavens we have a room that everyone can go to. So I'm never going to complain about that ever again,
There you
or
go.
at least not this week. I was going to say you had a great voice for radio, and then I thought how cliche that was since you're a musician. But,
It's not the first time it's come up. I used to, a while back, I worked at a Starbucks, and in the drive-thru, everyone would be like, oh, you should be on the radio. You should be on the radio.
you're like,
Like,
I'm
yeah,
working on it,
sure.
man.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Exactly. So we got super lucky, and you have recently put out two new EPs.
Mhm.
Totally different, I think a little bit different vibes on the two. I wonder if you'll share with us a little bit about yourself so people know, the name of your group, and then a little bit about the new EPs that have just come out, if that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one, Strings of Atlas, has been like the group that I've started and been in that for like years and years. For a while it was just me doing it, and off and on had other band members come in. So that started like 2006. And when I was in college, I started to get more into productions and things, and I met people who worked in hip hop, and I met some filmmakers who were doing indie films and everything. So I started to learn, kind of branch out from rock and roll and learn production and soundscapes and like Foley art. That was a fun one. And that all kind of started to influence a bit of what I was doing with Strings of Atlas. And so that we just released another EP, Friday? Yeah, this past Friday, the 10th. That just came out, and 3-track, doing really well. Another kind of apocalypse-driven rock and roll.
Yeah, I
And
was thinking it's very timely because I actually I went and looked at there's some great marketing kit kind of stuff that Michael sent out, your management group, and
with MTS, yeah.
yeah, and I was like, so timely. It's just a little apocalyptic, but things are gonna go better for us though.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's really the themes of all the albums, is always like there's this struggle, but you make it, you survive,
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so the fun part between these two is, so leading to Chords of Eve, which is the trip hop kind of electro pop group that I work with. It was kind of a story arc to where, in this parallel dimension, Strings of Atlas is playing this grand show at like this whole World War III setting, and no one wants to leave. It's all about the music and fighting back, and everything gets blown up and the band gets destroyed. And the Atomic Girls, which is actually a dance troupe that I used to work with for years and years, they were amazing people. I always have them pop up in whatever it is I'm doing. And we had a little comic book we sketched where the Atomic Girls found Atlas Cage in this dimension and started rebuilding him in this kind of, dystopian, futuristic settings. And that's where he meets this android, Casey, who can sing and sing really well. And no one can explain how she learned how to do this because she was never programmed for it. And that's where Chords of Eve comes from. And it kind of takes this very, very different approach from hard rock down to like kind of a chill out vibe and more pianos and synths and things like that in it.
Yeah, that's nice. So it's sort of like even in your musical life, it balances each other out, like the super intense vibe, and then kind of like, yeah, it's intense, but some days you just got to chill too. Like,
Some days, right?
and I so a little bit before our the interview, we just did a little prep, and for people who can't see the video, if they'd end up seeing the video, you have a photo behind you of cartoon art, and I was like, yeah, my husband plays that game. But it's interesting because I think that has a theme, that game, right? Doesn't the game have a
Mhm.
very similar theme to if you crashed your two EPs together?
It would be, yeah, this would be where it lands.
Yeah, it was sort of land. It was at fall. It's like Fallout, right?
Yeah, this is in particular is Vault Boy from Fallout 4, yeah, but
Yeah.
same
It's like,
mascot throughout the games. Yeah.
yeah, so you could like do really cool things and like get extra science power or stuff like that. Yeah, so I
hmm
thought that's really cool. So it's a very like that vibe, sort of the same thing where you know the world sort of smacks you upside the head, but at the end you can still figure out a way to get there. And then there's
Right.
androids and stuff. Yeah.
Of course, gotta have a few cents in there.
Definitely. So I love that you really so something that's been fun talking to you, that's a little different from some of the other artists we talked to, is you sort of have a holistic view of art. So it's not just music, right? You've talked about comic books, you've talked about dance troops, you talked about a lot of other things. Even when you describe your music, you don't say I'm a rock band or I'm a techno. It's like five adjectives all smushed together. So is art is that true? Is this like different infusion of other pieces of art, just not musically part of your experience?
I think, yeah, absolutely. I feel like where there's nothing wrong with taking the approach of creating an album for the sake of just writing music, like you like to jam, so you make a jam album. I tend to, as I write anything, songs, like either lyrically or musically or something I'm putting together, I feel like there's a story behind everything. And a lot of times I have like a movie scene playing in my head, and I'm like, okay, if this were happening in a film right now, what would the music sound like that's playing with it? And then when you have that song, it's like, why did they even get to that part? What was before that in the movie? What's after that? How is this all connected together? And I think because of that, it kind of allows me to expand my network 10 times faster than I would if I were just doing music, because then you meet, the Atomic Girls, who are a belly dance troupe and did fusion dance and joined in on this. And then you meet other graphic designers who, while you're, doing a comic book thing, people want to jump in. They're like, yeah, well, how about I do the art for your album or something like that. And you get this diverse network of people who just want to create and make something amazing. And that's the energy I feed off of, is people who want to make something more.
Yeah, so would you describe yourself as sort of we talk a lot on the entrepreneurial side, so we talk a lot about coaches, consultants, and creatives.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this creatives is has its own arc, almost its own story, because they bring together like these sparks of inspiration into the way they earn a living. And it's a little bit different than like teaching you how to do marketing, right?
True.
Showing someone how to make a comic book is not the same as showing someone how to contact all the media outlets and get interviews. So what's different? Is there anything different that you've seen with the creatives in terms of how they approach business versus those that are maybe in more traditional entrepreneurial adventures?
I think it really depends on the person, honestly. Like I've met people who are kind of haphazard with everything, and they're like, "We're just gonna make this thing because we got an idea. Let's just throw it out there and see what happens." And they do something really big or really great, and sometimes it's a hit. It does exactly what it was intended to do, and then sometimes it falls short because it didn't have that other foundation of marketing or of building that up first. And it really just varies person to person that I've seen. Some people take it extremely seriously and they had a business background, and then they got into like the arts and kind of lean towards the creative a bit, which I think in a way that helps widen like people's perspective in terms of how they market something or what kind of audience they're reaching for, rather than this is the data, this is what the numbers say, just do this. You get a little creative with it. And I
Yeah.
think that helps a ton. That makes for some of the most interesting campaigns that people do, and I think honestly some of the more interesting artists too.
I think right now too, something that I'm seeing is people are having to be more creative with
Mhm.
their marketing, or people are in a kind of a different state right now, or some people are coming from like a fear place, or maybe before they were coming from more of a security or more abundant space. And so it takes different ways to be creative and still get your message out to someone who's feeling a different vibe in general.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you end up releasing two LP or EPs at the exact same time? Like how does that even happen in terms of like the time space continuum in terms of having time to get all of that done?
That so you just give up on things like sleeping and going out with your friends? Just just get rid of all the, throw it out the window for about 2.5 months. And
So you went on preemptive quarantine.
yeah, I was kind of already living the lifestyle before they told me to stay inside. And I was like, oh, is that okay?
Oh, there's people.
But it was, so the original idea was we were setting up a live show, of course, CD release party, to where it was going to be less of, here's the band, we're going to play this song. Okay, we got 2 songs left. Okay, we got this. And it was a theatrical event where there was a story that led to the first song. And then it was the band kind of having their disgruntled moments, and like some want to leave and some want to stay and things are getting tense. And then the destruction happens and it leads over to the next group, who then we take a minute, set up on stage while the narrator's doing their thing, and we keep going from there.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, it was I think a good idea. It's something we'll have to revisit now in the future, but we had to do, a digital version. And what we end up doing on that is, it was tricky getting everyone to, I don't know, like the timing wise and video wise and internet bandwidth wise. So we ended up doing 9 hours of on the hour, every hour. We would just play a song off the website and then talk with someone who had something to do with the creation of it, like a music video director, someone who did the artwork, or something like that had into it. And just every hour we popped up and kind of trial by fire did my first live stream, 9 hours.
Yeah. There you go. Why not start with a bang, right?
Yeah, right.
Why make it easy? Oh, wow. That's crazy. So it sounds like, oh, I'm so bummed, because I think that the whole idea of this, you know, active musical art theater sort of apocalypse smash up sounds super fun. Like it would have been a really neat release party. You're thinking maybe you might try to do something at a future date when maybe the world is outside.
Yeah, right. It's definitely something I think I have to tweak it a bit now, because that was the reason we released them at the same time, was to make that arc happen all at once. And man, that was a beast. That was definitely a beast to do that. But I think there's something still where those two worlds can, have a crossover. We can do something in the future. So I think
That
there's still
sounds super
plans for it in
fun.
the back burner.
So are you going to continue on with both sort of so for, okay, so first of all, you had mentioned early before our conversation that they're kind of two different styles of music, for lack of me being a musician myself to be able to know what I'm saying. What are the vibe of the two? Like, how are they different? Because you said, I think Chords of Eve, you like techno slash 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 slash. So, what were you going after in each of the two vibes?
So with Chords of Eve, it's kind of like, I've always been a fan of like trip hop and lo-fi and things like Massive Attack or Tricky, Portishead, Imogene Heat, that sort of sound. I've always liked as kind of like a more calming area for me to go to outside of rock and roll. I mean, I love rock. I started off in death metal of all things. And so with Chords of Eve, it kind of was, I wanted to take that hard rock aspect out of my music and try something completely different, and see what tones I could capture in that and see if I can get that same groove going. And then with Strings of Atlas, sometimes you just got to rock. Sometimes, and I love just hard hitting, fast rock and roll. So that kind of scratches that itch for me.
I remember one of my first memories. So I'm aging myself here. I've been around so long that I went to a concert where Metallica was the opening band. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
It was pretty cool though, because it was like it was out by us in a field. Everyone was kind of out in this. There wasn't enough seating, so you're out in the grass, and they opened up for another band. And I remember like who's this group opening up right now? Like now, like yeah, their story's been written and it's gone. But rock and roll went through a lot of interesting turns too, because I remember, and it was not one I loved actually, but I had some friends that were like speed metal even became a thing, right? And it was like speed metal, and then there's death metal, and like hard rock and soft rock and all of these different vibes. So how did you kind of end with like Strings of Atlas? Do you sort of try to weave a lot of different kinds of rock together, or do you stick with one kind of main genre?
I think I kind of find my natural rhythm falls in this kind of like mid-tempo groove thing. It's almost like it's got to have a little bit of like Motown, a little funkiness to it in terms of the rhythm, but that guitar is just distorted and nasty and driving the whole time. I think that's where my natural rhythm falls. So that's kind of like the repeating pattern. And there'll be some songs that step out of that a bit and become a bit more like ballad rock or a little softer. But for the most part, I think the style is pretty consistent with just heavy mid-tempo drive.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, do you personally play a lot of instruments or?
Yeah, I play a few. Guitar is my main one, and then I play bass. I play drums. I used to play violin and viola, but a bit out of practice on that. It's probably been about 11 years since I played either of those.
Yeah.
And then a little harmonica, just because I thought it'd be fun to learn.
I think I've seen some really neat things in the last, maybe, I say last 10 years with some of the classical instruments sort of integrating into more modern music. Like, I mean, a bad example, but All About That Bass, right? They kind of, that was a modern one.
That's a catchy song. That's a
It
catchy song.
is. It's
Like
like,
that is very catchy.
it's like an earworm. And the other is that on the countryside was in The Devil Went Down to Georgia, where he kind of got this like
Oh
hard
yeah.
ass, like serious, like fiddle playing in there. That was like raunchy. It was really awesome. It was like a
I can listen
cool,
to that all day. Country
right,
fiddle
like
might do it.
super cool like vibe where they twisted it together. I was like, oh, look at that, like classical instruments rocked in. I play accordion, so I'm not nearly as cool as anyone else.
Oh, cool. No, that's pretty cool though.
People from Wisconsin, that's what we do. We have a squeeze box. That's how we're rocking it out. Um, so with these two big projects, sort of, I guess they didn't wrap up. They sort of wrapped up and
Just
finished.
kicked
And
off a
now
little.
you're like, I'm done. Stop it. Do you have any things on the horizon that you're kind of looking at doing next, or you're already half creating in your head, or what's going on for you guys?
So as far as Sky Titan, the label itself, we have a hip hop project we're working on for like late summer. So that's still in the creative works there. For Strings of Atlas and Chords of Eve, we just debuted a new Strings of Atlas music video, which we got with Adam Rodriguez here, who's local performer, stage guy, and amazing.
Was
So
it
that
the
was like our
is it the S one? Is
yeah
that
yeah.
Yeah, that's so fun. Yeah, I checked that out. We'll have to make sure that other people get to see that little snippet that Michael shared. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. That was a ton of fun. That was our next big push after we had the album going. We had that one ready to kind of launch with everything. And actually, just as of last night, for Chords of Eve, we're partnering with the Leglong Foundation, which is a private foundation here that does like charitable giving. And we're going to put together a community source music video and raise money for the Central Texas Food Bank.
Nice. Wow.
So
Really
yeah,
cool.
we're working on that right now.
So always something going on. So you want
Yeah.
it. So I speaking of the video, kind of the Strings of Atlas. So I have this admission, which I love that happened. So I didn't really. It got on the website. First thing I saw was that little music video clip, and I was like, yeah, that totally looks like a rocker. And then you show up, and I was like, he's the one that's rocking it. Shut up. It's so cool. So it was really kind of a fun surprise that I just not having followed you yet, saw the main guy who's kind of got this like old, like my dad's rock and roll guy, right? Like the long hair, and then you show up, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And it was super fun. So
It's
I
like, is
think
that
you
Lenny
have
Kravitz?
what?
It's like, is that Lenny Kravitz?
Oh, I didn't think about that, but yeah, something like that. But no, I was like, oh, where's this? But it was really fun because I thought, where's this going?
Mhm.
Right? So there's like this smash up between the totally different visual looks, and there's the plastic gloves and the Superman kind of cape thing, and I'm like, what is happening? Um, a guy like the guy without the beard, but he kind of had ZZ Top hair, and I was like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, this is so rock, old. And then I was like, yeah, it's not 80s rock anymore, girlfriend. The world has evolved without you. It's very, very cool. And you have this like great tonage to your voice. It's really, really fun, which is
Oh, thank
really
you.
a voice guy thing, right? So,
I feel like I'm one of those people who's always like, my voice is terrible. I hate hearing it. And people are like, no, it's good. You should sing more. I'm like, rock
hey,
and roll it fit. Beyond that, I don't know.
who knows, right? Well,
Right.
people obviously like it though. I mean, there's like lots of you obviously have some fans, and you're doing some fun, neat mashups, which I love, and
Yeah.
I'm sure the audience loves. So one other thing you had mentioned again earlier was you kind of there's a different audience kind of for the Chords of Eve. I wonder if you'd
Mhm.
expand upon that a little bit, like what your vibe you're trying to do a little bit different there.
With Chords of Eve, I feel like it's a easier to approach style of music. It's easy listening. It's not so, like my fiance, her mom's great. She always supports like the music stuff we're doing, but whenever I play rock, she's like, I don't get it, but good job. She's like,
Oh,
why is it
sure.
so noisy? And then when we, with Chords of Eve, when it definitely it smooths everything out. There's almost, I think we snuck in guitar on 2 tracks that are a little more upbeat, but for the most part, we wanted to get more of that easy listening and that kind of like, easy to approach, not so much like a punch in the face kind of rock song. And I think there's definitely that line in terms of people who like music a certain way. They don't want to hear screaming and craziness. They only want to be able to wind down from it. And I think that's where that division happens. But there's also a decent overlap of people who like that hard rock, but also like to just kind of chill out and hang out for a little while and listen to something not so pushing.
Yeah, I love that. Like easier to approach is such a wonderful way to say that. And you're right. I was actually we have a I don't want anyone turn on anyone's Amazon ALE, right? If I say the word, everybody will get mad. But so I'm like doing right now we have to walk in the house because we're not leaving anywhere. So we're doing the walk and we have my husband's
Mhm.
playlist is playing. So it's energizing. It's like hard, right? He plays electric guitar. It's like this, and it's great for really getting going. And then I'm like, after about 2 hours, me, not him, I'm like, all right, I need to come on down now, right? Like, this is so big. It's like such a big sound. Um,
Mhm.
and I have a daughter who's on autism spectrum, and so interestingly, she loves music, every music, even hard rock. Like she just likes the vibe, like the feel, like the
Yeah.
music's, as long as it has some kind of undertone of rhythm or sort of something that she can feel the repetition of, she's fine. But even I was like, yeah. So now I might have to go Chords of Eve on my second. First we'll rock out to the good walk, and then the chill. I'm gonna rock in with the Chords of Eve a little bit there. It's just
There you go, all day.
so where can people find this amazing music that I'm just super excited about and just got lucky to learn about recently? Where can they find you?
So we've got of course, the Sky Titan Media website, which has all of our artists on that. So every time we get something new, you'll see it pop up there. And we stay active with Facebook, so you'll always see new links coming up there. But in terms of streaming or buying, it's everywhere now. It's Spotify is the main one that we put out. Pandora, Deezer, Napster, Rhapsody. You can Shazam it. Shazam will take you like a few. Apple Music. So
Wow,
it's
you're
it's in
not
a couple
messing
of
around.
spots.
Look at you getting it all out there. I love it. So
Staying
are you
busy
gonna
for sure.
sleep a little bit now that you just like jammed it out, or you're like, nah, I got stuff to do?
I was planning that yesterday. It was kind of a lazy day for a little bit, and then we started building up with the charity music video. And then 1 a.m. hit, and I was like, I should probably go to bed. I got things to do tomorrow.
I got life to do. Awesome. Well,
So we'll
make
see. We'll see if
sure.
sleep finds its way in there.
Yeah, maybe. We'll make sure to put, the URL and the Facebook group and all of that in the show notes so people can find you, and hopefully they'll get on Facebook because you, like you said, you're really active on there. You keep seeing new
Yeah.
things pop up.
Mhm.
But thank you so much, especially since you didn't get, go to bed till late, and for showing up and chilling out with us here at Press Play Lifestyle. And I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by your music and like that story vibe of bringing the two things together. So thanks so much
Yeah,
for
Jackie. Thank you
introducing
for
it to
having
us.
me.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Well, we'll keep in touch, and you have a great day. Okay.
All right. You too.
Bye bye.